Bold predictions, chapter 15. These are bets that you claim you would make this year. And I don't know whether you mean it or not, but most of you, I think, are this bold. And so we've got 5 more tonight. I'm going to rate these on a scale of 1 to 10 boldness. This first one is, we're stretching it, but let's go with it. Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, both of Alabama fame, will combine for 35 sacks this year. That's what Daniel says. Okay, I made this a 9, and I just told you earlier in this show, I think they're the 2 best edge rushers in college football. They both play for the same team. So if any duo is going to achieve these kinds of legendary, record-setting numbers, it would be them. To be clear, what we're asking for here, if you combine for 35 or more sacks, both of them need to average 18. One of them could have 20, one of them could, I understand that. They need to average 18. To give you an idea of how lofty that would be, that would place both of them in the top 4 all time in terms of total sacks in a given year. Like that's rarefied air for one guy. Will Anderson had 17.5 last year, I think. Dallas Turner had 8.5. They'd both need to be in that category or a little bit higher, or one of them just needs to go off and get like 22 or 23. I'm telling you, these are generational players. I don't throw that term around lightly. Generational, I know what that means. Generational, i.e., Alabama hasn't had this since the early 90s. I think we know which combo I'm talking about back then. So, yes, if anyone's going to do it, they're going to do it. I just know how insane that number is. So by default, I'm saying that's a 9 on the boldness scale. But man, I'm looking forward to watching them. How about we go to the Big Ten here for our next bold proclamation? I gave this one an 8. Hard to Kill said Michigan State wins the Big Ten. They win the conference, they win the division, they win everything up there. I gave this one an 8 because I think they have to beat Ohio State for this to happen. Flat out. Now, they get them in East Lansing. I was at the game in Columbus last year. It wouldn't have mattered where they played that one. That was a rout, and it was a total mismatch. Wide receivers versus the Michigan State secondary. They know. I mean, it's not I'm telling them anything they don't know. They've got a long way to go in shoring that up. They have made efforts to do that. They've got to beat Ohio State only because I don't know that you can count on Ohio State to lose 2 games, which you would need them to do at least if you lost to them because of the tiebreaker. So do I think that's going to happen? That I wouldn't pick at this moment. That is hard for me to see. But then even after that, we're thinking they can maybe afford 1 loss, so they got to go 3 or 4 against Minnesota, Wisconsin, at Michigan, and at Penn State. We're looking at their odds to win the Big Ten right now. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're tied for 5th with Iowa at plus 2,500 odds. It's just hard to do it, guys. Hard to do it. You know I'm a big Michigan State guy, but that's hard to do. I'm giving that one an 8 on the boldness scale. We went to one next out of the SEC. It's kind of a little vague, but you know what? Let's roll with it. Jimbo Fisher, what do we think here? John said in January, my prediction is we will all look back and think, how did Jimbo take so long to pick a quarterback? This guy's amazing. And the bold part, we'll be saying it no matter who wins the job. Who's battling for the job here? We got Max Johnson, we got Haynes King, and Connor Wegman is in there. I've told you I think it's going to come down to Johnson or King. All right, so we're insinuating here that whoever starts initially for A&M will not be the guy who ends up holding down the job long term. That's what the suggestion is. I'm making this a 6. We've seen it happen before. We've seen, all the due diligence and all the spring and summer and fall camp, and yet you end up still rolling with the second best option, but eventually you're starting the right guy. That's happened before. But normally when it happens, the starter gets hurt and the backup ends up outshining him, and then they just never go back. That happened at Georgia last year. I don't know that we're going to see what Texas had last year. Texas had, remember we were talking all fall camp. Is it going to be Casey Thompson? Is it going to be Hudson Card? And then one started, and then they flip-flopped and flip-flopped. I don't think that's what A&M's going to do. I think Texas was doing that last year because they weren't fully set on having the guy they could win with. A&M thinks they got 2 guys they can win with, and I believe they will narrow it down and they will have their guy. Now, if their guy is out due to injury and we end up seeing the backup come in and shine, that's a totally different deal. But if injury's not involved here and you're just telling me Jimbo's going to go with the wrong option initially, then he's going to switch it up, and then everything's going to take off for A&M, and we're going to say, what took so long? That's not the craziest thing in the world. I think it's got some boldness to it, so I'm going to go with a 6 on that one. There is a lot of boldness in the next one. I'm talking about awards here. Ohio State's going to be good this year. That much I think I know. But Buckeye Nation hit us up and said Ohio State will have the Davy O'Brien Award winner, that's the best quarterback in the country, the Doak Walker Award winner, best running back, and the Biletnikoff Award winner, best wide receiver. They're going to do that all in the same year. This is an 8, maybe even a 9, just out of principle. Now, if you're thinking individually, you can make an argument for all of them. In fact, I think when you take C.J. Stroud at quarterback and you got Jackson Smith and Jigba at wide receiver, Travion Henderson at running back, they rate top 2 at their position nationally. So you're not listening to me knock any of them. I'm just saying, think about what has to happen. Think about how many stars have to align for you to have the kind of season statistically where all 3 of them win their individual position awards. Oh, and by the way, I could make an argument that Smith and Jigba or Jamison Williams should have won the thing last year. And yet Jordan Addison did, which brings me to my next point. There's a variable in the room that's out of your control, and those are voters. Your numbers alone, your performance alone does not dictate this. Voters have to look at your performance and then decide that you're getting the award. And I just don't think they're going to allow Ohio State to clean sweep that, even if they're that good. So telling me Ohio State's going to have 3 guys that are good enough would be a little less bold. Telling me that they're actually going to win all 3 of those awards a little bit more bold. So I went an 8. Last bold prediction here. We go to a seldom visited portion of the SEC. Shame on me. The Missouri Tigers. Drinkwitz Burner hit us up. He said Missouri's going to win 8 games. I put this at a 7 because I think there are going to be a couple of hinge games, those one-possession bounce the ball type games, that are ultimately going to decide this. The good news for Missouri is they're probably not going to find themselves out of games this year in most cases. They've got a good veteran stable of wide receivers, but they're mixing in some youth. Luther Burden, for example, I think is going to be an instant contributor there. Quarterback and the interior of their offensive line, I think they're replacing a center. Those kinds of things have to be figured out. I'm throwing all that at you at one time because I think about their schedule, and I think about whether they play South Carolina or they're going to Auburn early in the year. They play Kentucky. They play South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee back to back to back. Those games all could pivot on one possession or a couple of scenarios or sequences in a second quarter. And so Missouri does not feel like an 8-win team to me. I think they were a 6-win team last year, but at the same time, they could pop one on you. They could be a 4 or 5 point dog in a couple of games and pull the outright upset. So I don't think it's wild. I put a 7 on it. I don't expect them to be there. Their over-under's 5 wins, by the way. So it is well detached from what the Vegas over-under is. But I think even with that over-under, I think there are going to be a lot of short underdog spots for them where any given Saturday you're looking and saying, oh, you're telling me Missouri's going to win today? That's not crazy. If you could stack some of those up and they win a few of those, that's what's going to make the difference. Good predictions, though. Good, solid, well thought out predictions.